Welcome back to Krown's Crypto Cave. Once again, up for a very early Thursday morning over here from bright and sunny Helsinki, Finland. As always, I would like to take a second to wish you the best, and the haps of the haps before we even begin, because it's really fucking important to do this morning. Going across the Twitter sphere, apparently the world's on fire once again. Who knows what the hell is going on this time? But it's okay because we have each other and we have the charts, the magical charts, of which Miss Cleo is going to be joining me today, and we're going to be looking at actually a lot of very interesting things on the short and medium term time frames, but again with the major focus on, or perhaps better said, the greater perspective that the monthly is going to be closing just tomorrow on Friday. So mostly all of today and tomorrow is just going to be a setup for that, with the major focus on what we actually see resolved with that closure coming in just under about 48 hours from now. So in a more serious tone, right now is kind of the time to be, at least from my perspective, more or less kind of taking a step back and just appreciating this last week or two of opportunity, and now waiting for resolutions here. So with that said, let's go look at the Krown Chain application, which can be found at app.krownchain.net. Oh, I forgot. Yeah, I will be on Cointelegraph's live stream later today. I forget exactly which time. I know that I'm certainly a lot earlier in the day because I go to bed at 9. I actually do go to bed at 9 p.m. It's fucking crazy. Sometimes even sooner than that, depending upon how tired I am. But looking at this Reddit over here, we do see that open interest still kind of hanging around that 2.3.5 billion marker, which I don't have anything to make off it other than that right now. I just want to be documenting this if and when Bitcoin does break the next macro range, of which it flirted with once again yesterday, hitting our $11,300 target yesterday for just a second, and now coming back down into range, of which that macro range is relevant to the 11,500ish region. So I really want to be documenting what that actual read would look like if Bitcoin were to exceed it. But I'm actually really not looking for something like that to happen today or tomorrow, probably not until we get the new monthly. With that said, we do see that the fear and greed index is still ticking up a few more points, up to 76 from a 71. So we are the highest that we've been pretty much since February, I believe, of this year. So it's been quite some time that we've even seen green on this, and Bitcoin dominance actually heading up about 0.25% from yesterday to today as well. So Bitcoin being sideways is actually not necessarily benefiting most of the alts right there. So let's go take a look at some of the tabs that I don't always show, but I do think that they're we might as well go a little bit more deeper into the weeds today, seeing as focus is mostly going to be on short-term time frames for Bitcoin. But looking at some of these guys, I'm curious if anything here just kind of stands out. First things first, we do see that the Bitcoin global funding rate is at a little bit of an outlier compared to the last couple months. Actually, going all the way back to late May, we do see that this is a major step outside of that range. But realistically, this is not all that high. A funding rate of 0.05 is really not going to cost all that much. I mean, if you're holding $1 million in contract position, then you're paying a few $1,000s to hold your position per day. It's not a huge consideration at that point. It really becomes a huge consideration when it's 0.1 or greater. But it is it is starting to march its way up there. But I'd really look for that level to be sustained, 0.1 or greater, for a little bit of time before kind of declaring a more major high, as those two those two features typically do go hand in hand with each other. Of course, accompanied by price action as well, which is going to be a much greater focus on this. But looking at everything else, let's see. Is there anything else of interest here that we would not necessarily see otherwise? Looking at the fear and greed index, we can see that. Yeah, it's been a long time actually. We can't even see it on the chart because we've only been tracking this since May. But looking at the indicators as well, actually I haven't been showing this as well either. But it's actually rather interesting here. Looking at these these Krown's momentum is what we're talking about. We're just essentially just speaking to the momentum on that time frame in a more digestible way to kind of read it, and would essentially suggest that the 4-hour momentum has reset, which is what we were looking for yesterday, and the 12-hour and daily momentum are still actually moving to the upside. So I do like that overall. And what does that kind of fit into on the greater the greater sphere of things? Well, it probably fits into a little bit of sideways, a little bit of probably even a little bit of down But overall, long term, still going to have a chance here for Bitcoin to actually exceed the long term macro range. So let's go into the actual charts right now. I want to start it off today with Nasdaq futures once again, because I think it's the most interesting chart. Yesterday, I did say I'd be looking for a move back down to test around about 10,400, 10,450. We didn't quite get there. We got about $50 away. But the main disposition there was looking for a bounce within that region, and a bounce within that region would imply that this overall structure right here is more or less healthy as far as this goes. It looks like reaccumulation, and I believe that that's actually what we are. Yeah, I do believe that that's exactly what we're seeing right here. And at the very least, it will test back up towards 10,850. If it does test back up around there, does that necessarily imply that it's resolved to the upside? No, it does not, but it would make it look like an overall, I mean, what do you want to call it? Do you want to call it a flag? Do you want to call it some sort of a diamond? Do you want to call it, I don't care what you call it. It looks like reaccumulation, especially with the way that it's bouncing off the 21 once again, as momentum has essentially reset all the way back to the edge of the bearish control zone, which would be a great point for it to actually start to turn back up again. So, I don't necessarily have a strong opinion whether it tests back down to 10,550 first. I think that it certainly can, but I do think that would more or less be an opportunity, and probably over the next couple of days it will pop back up and test around 10,850. It's very interesting with the way that the FOMC meeting was was resolved yesterday. The general gist of it was essentially that the U.S. Federal government is going to do everything in its power to make sure that the economy stays up, and so that's basically saying we're going to back this market with some fucking nukes, huh? which is the real backing that you want. People say the US dollar is backed by nothing. Gold is backed by being God's money. Bitcoin's backed by mathematics. Well, US dollar is backed by about 10,000 fucking nukes. So good luck with that. I'm choosing the nukes this time, man. And I do think, yeah, short term it probably does head back up around here. Any sort of a weekly close tomorrow, Friday, above 10,850, that same area actually, or even a daily close above there, and I'd consider this your next higher low, a very much higher low right there, and getting ready for another continuation drive to the upside. So I think I'm going to be, I think I'm going to be wrong about last week when looking at this as a potential reversal. I don't think that that's what's happening here. At least that's not my disposition right now with the way that it acted over the past 2 days. However, my opinion on this is, as always, irrelevant. I do not trade my opinion, and realistically, the only thing that I'd really be looking at right here is quite literally levels. I think they're very well documented. I'm actually going to get rid of this one right here. It is relevant, but not to what we're speaking about right now. Let's put this guy in right here. Get a nice little blue box of peace and prosperity. And any sort of a daily total closure below 10,500, 10,450 especially. And yeah, I would look for a greater retracement all the way back down to 10,150, but that's not how it's acting right now. It looks to me like it's, it might come back down and test around 10,550, but overall I'd be looking for another spike back up to 10,850. That's the next sort of continuation point to the upside. And can there be made a measured move for something like this? I'll do a very bad drawing on this one, but I would imagine it probably points a little bit north towards 11,300-ish region. I don't really have any other extensions to be made off this one, but overall, somewhere in that region, if 10,850 is closed above, especially on a daily or the weekly closing tomorrow, or the monthly as well. By the way, keep in mind the monthly is going to have a chance to close rather healthily, looking like continuation right here. I mean, this is a very sombering chart for all the people who want to be bearish on traditional markets. If it closes like this, I don't think that that's bearish. Now, if it closes below 10,400, then yes, looks a lot more bearish. But as it stands right now, I mean, still in the process of trending as far as this one's concerned. It hasn't even put in a high just yet, although it does look rather frothy. But here's the thing. Keep in mind that on Friday, not only are we closing the weekly, but also the monthly as well. And well, the monthly actually does have a much lower baseline. It's what? No. It was E-mini futures for SPY. That's what I was looking at right there, which we can go check out right now. Why not, man? And it's looking essentially the same as well. So we spoke about this yesterday that as long as it's riding the 21, it's not bearish here. And while, and while, I know a lot of people were looking at this as a shooting star dildo last week. I mean, technically, yes, it was in play, but no follow through equals no reversal. So at the end of the day, confirmation traders once again saved by the bell, and this one gets to continue upwards and onwards. I'd be looking for it to retest back down around 323 region, but I do think that it bounced off there, heads back up towards this 328, 329 high, and assuming that tomorrow does close relatively healthily, any sort of a closure tomorrow for the monthly above 323, I'd be looking for a retest of the all-time high and probably new all-time highs coming into August and September. Again, this is an uptrend right here. There's nothing special about it. It's quite literally just continuation as far as I'm concerned. And yes, it's this chart right here that I want to put a focus on, because this is a 10-year long trend line that has been valid on SPY for the monthly, which has caught all the major lows coming out of the 08-09 crash, and that was certainly a crash. But looking back to even December 2011, that got this major low right here, or actually starting off with this major low right here in 2010. In fact, this and then this major low right here, got this major low right here, got this major low right here more recently, and then of course, actually we're just testing it right now as SPY is quite literally flirting with a new closing all-time high for a monthly. Again, a lot can happen between now and tomorrow, that being Friday, the monthly closure. But for right now, things are still looking, I think, mostly good. It's hard to hate this from a major moving average perspective as well, and everything seems to be continuing upwards and onwards. I would not get bearish on this one as long as it's above 320, especially below 320. Yes, I would look for a greater retracement back down to 314 or 311. I guess this is 311.5. However, for right now, I do think that this is more or less a reset, and it's going to get another try to the upside, and then we'll come back. But again, the big focus is on tomorrow's closure. So why am I spending so much time looking at traditional markets when Bitcoin is what you're probably here for? Well, because honestly, it's probably more important. But that's the real answer. But I'll give you the Bitcoin answer because. Sorry, that's so condescending. I'm so sorry. But the reason is because we typically see traditional markets kind of set the tone for Bitcoin, as everything's related to each other. A rising tide lifts all ships, and in everything in the world, pretty much that can rally right now is rallying right now, Bitcoin included, and traditional markets included, and even currencies against the US dollar included, because Dixie's getting absolutely fucking cream pied. But going over here and checking out Bitcoin, let's follow up from yesterday's analysis. We did say yesterday that short-term move back up to 11,500 was very likely, and we got that actually almost to the T, 11,350 on GDAX right here. And what is Bitcoin doing right now? Well, I'm sure a lot of people are probably talking about the bearish divergence on the 4-hour, which is true. You do have bearish divergence right here. You got 1, 2, 3 stabs as well. I mean, that's usually quite nasty. Even the jewel is starting to diverge away as well. And kind of give you a soft sell signal right there. 12-hour also does have divergence in place as well. And not necessarily confirmed just yet. Would like to see a closure below 11,000 to really confirm that one. But we do see that divergence followed up all the way to, yes, it's confirmed on a 6-hour. What about an 8-hour? Confirmed on an 8-hour as well. Confirmed on a 10-hour too, perhaps. Yes, indeed it is. But is it actually going to play out? I would actually argue right now that no. Well, I shouldn't say no. I do think that Bitcoin's getting out of the try to the upside here. This to me just looks like a backfill on the daily, and momentum oscillators mostly have had a chance to cool off. I do believe Bitcoin on a 4-hour is potentially making some hidden bullish divergence here once again. Yes, indeed it is. If it can put in a higher low right here, how would it put in a higher low? Well, just don't close below 11,000 essentially. So it's right at that price point right now. So I don't think that that's going to be all that problematic. Does Bitcoin get a wick down to the 21 exponential moving average on the 4-hour first at about 10,800? I think that's possible. But as long as there's no closures below this level, I don't really look at that as a I don't really look at that as likely to play out, or maybe better said, it's already played out. Because, I mean, keep in mind, this is already a $300 move from top to bottom here, or sorry, a little bit more than that, which amounts to almost 4% move, which is rather nice. Now, 3 strikes of bearish divergence on a 4-hour typically will net you a little bit more than that. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility to get another test back down here to 10.8. But overall, it's all about the closures tomorrow, really. So while I am kind of, talking in circles here on the lower term timeframes, and I do think that it's very possible that we could test to the downside here, my focus is mostly on that. Now, I do think that it is a little bit concerning that the 3-hour has given a pretty much perfect sell signal right there. Now, again, that, you could argue that that's already kind of giving you a nice little move for about $400. Yeah. $400 top to bottom if you traded that one perfectly, which is easier said than done, of course. But looking at this right now, I'd just be going level by level in order to not get kind of caught up in the minutia here. And I think that the best level to be going off of right now is essentially this guy right here. The one that we've been documenting going forwards, coming in right around 10.9. As long as we're closing 4-hour dollars above 10.9, I don't really think that I don't think that we're going to see any sort of short-term or medium-term pullback. I mean, short-term is always relative, but medium-term pullback would speak more so towards the 10.5, 50-ish region right here, which I do think probably gets retested. But I think that we get a new monthly before we get that retest, and that probably becomes a nice little opportunity. In the meantime, let's go check out the monthly and see how this one's setting up as it is right now. And here's really the big focus that I want to have today, because again, the monthly's closing tomorrow. If you've waited this long, or if you were having a good week this past week or two, which I know a lot of people in this community were, I mean, phenomenal, and more power to you. There's nothing wrong with just taking a step back and letting letting the higher term time frame set. It's been quite opportunistic these last couple of weeks, so a little bit of downtime is completely fine as far as I'm concerned. But here's what I'd be watching coming into this weekly, or sorry, into this monthly close. Any sort of a closure above our last closing high coming in June 2019 at about 10,750, so we'll just call that 10,800, would denote a change of behavior here for the macro as far as I'm concerned. We'd once again be confirming a trend continuation to the upside. I mean, that is your last high right there. That's your last low right there. Continuation right above there. And realistically, at that point, I'd be looking for moves back up towards 14,000-ish region and probably beyond. And this is all coming along the side of momentum also is turning back up again. We do see that monthly stocks will very much be erect and also confirming a rejection, or a full rejection, I suppose, because the confirmation of rejection was last month, of the bearish controls on there. And we will see momentum oscillators turn to the upside as long as Bitcoin closes above 9,600. So I'd say that that's looking likely right now. Of course, we've all seen crazy things. We've all seen very crazy things. $1,500 move within 2 days is not out of the question for Bitcoin. But perspective at the end of the day, I think does kind of trump all. Looking at the monthly jewel, it's essentially confirming a holiday long signal coming in from April 2020, confirmed fully on May, and the monthly RSI is looking a lot like accumulation within this region as well. Even kind of a soft formation in here as well, with a left shoulder head and right shoulder right here, and going to confirm a breakout with any sort of a closure above the 58 level on the monthly RSI, very likely initiating a test back up into the bullish control zone. So all these things, working together, and I would say that tomorrow's closure, if it does close above 10,800, especially, and the more the better, of course, it's just going to make it more confident, I suppose, would insinuate that, coming into August, September, I'd be looking for moves up to 14,000 and probably beyond after that. But I'd really want to see it in real time as well, because, you don't want to get too ahead of yourself, I suppose. Looking at the weekly as well, I do think, the weekly close on Sunday, but CME's close tomorrow, so we can look at them, and any sort of weekly close above 10,600 would also confirm that change of behavior for the weekly. So again, both in the same area, essentially, it's the same high going back, but we get to confirm it on CME sooner than spot price action. And weekly RSI for CME is actually looking very, very healthy here as well. Looks like it wants to stay in the bullish control zone for a little bit of time. After being allergic to it, which will very likely be confirmed with any sort of a closure above, again, about 10, especially 10,600, but even like 10, what is this closing area at 10,500, or at least $5 below there, all kind of within the same vicinity. And it will also give the weekly jewel another chance to bounce along this guy as well. Although, again, I don't really feel all that confident on something that doesn't have that much history here. I mean, look at this, doesn't even have enough to populate everything that you really need to see. But overall, things look more or less setting up for a very, 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 very strong monthly closure. which would make me bullish coming into August and September, or at least have that bullish bias for the long term. Looking for moves to basically 14,000 and beyond. I feel a little bit moon boyish, kind of talking about that bullshit right now, and I really like to kind of stay away from that sort of things. But if the monthly does close in a healthy manner, that is what I'd be looking for, to be quite direct. Looking at the 4 hour right here on CMEs, we see the same sort of bearish divergence as well. Even the 4 hour jewel is lining up for a pretty, you might even say the aggressive traders will even look at that as a damn good sell signal to begin with. If things come back down to test around 10.9, 10.8, I think that that's still in line with the overall structure. It wouldn't necessarily constitute a break, but it's below 10.8 on spot and 10.9 on CMEs. That will denote a short-term, medium-term turn back down to probably 10.5, 10.550-ish region. I think that we do get a test down to like 10.8 region on spot. I just don't think that it actually breaks, as to me this looks like it's still in the process of trending. The lower term timeframes obviously do look quite what's called cooked up here, but it's really right now when things are in the process of trending, time to be looking at not the lower term timeframes but the medium and higher term timeframes to gain perspective of the greater whole. Short term timeframes should really only just be used to denote or kind of judge short term pullbacks in this nature. But again, it keeps on coming back to the fact that the monthly is closing tomorrow, and that really should be the big focus. And I know that I'm harping on that quite a bit, but it is very important to me. Looking at 12 hour for CMEs, we actually do see the same sort of bearish divergence present here, or do we see the same sort of bearish divergence present? Yeah, it's potential on spot price action hasn't necessarily confirmed itself just yet. Closure below 10.950 on a 12 hour would do it, and very likely initiate a move back down to 10.6, 10.550-ish region. We're also going to see 12 hour Stokes probably cross the downside, snaking around quite a bit up there, but it will cross back up to the upside with any sort of a 12 hour closure in the next 6 hours, 49 minutes and 53 seconds above 11,188. Definitely possible, but this more or less just kind of reads as a little bit of sideways action to me. Probably test back down to the short-term downside range at 10.9 or 10.8, but I actually don't think that it breaks. But again, I don't trade my opinion. If it breaks, it breaks, and I'm looking for another $400, $500 move to the downside, and that's very much tradable as far as I'm concerned. Looking at the 10 hour right here, we've already got the move down to the 10 simple, and guess what? 10 hour momentum is actually going to cross back up into the critical zone with any sort of a 10 hour close above 10,900. And I would actually put a lot of focus on this right now. And we are in minute 21. We're in minute 22, so I can speak towards the crypto nerds. I have a theory right now. I think that I think that the 10 hour is actually kind of taken over for what the 12 hour was in the past couple of years. The 10 hour seems to be working better, and of course, being just a slightly lower term time frame, it gives you a slightly faster lead than a 12 hour, obviously. But the point that I'm trying to make right now is that if this one does cross back up, we're going to naturally see it go on into the 12 hour as well, and this is going to very likely get at least another try to the upside, back around 11,300. And if it does break it to the upside, then I would be looking for extension to 11.5 region. As it stands. I mean, everything right here though this really does look like it wants to test back down to 10.8 though, short term. It's just, I'm saying that I don't necessarily think that there's going to be an actual closure below there, which I think matters a lot more in this current posturing. Let's go check out the very low time frames for historical volatility percentile. Hourly looks like potentially a higher low as well, with major hidden bullish divergence. If it can confirm a low right here, it will confirm a low right here with any sort of a closure, especially above about 11,100, and then I'd look for a move back up toward 11,250, 11,300-ish region. And this is going to look like one nice little ascending triangle at the top. So realistically, right now, I have a feeling that this video is just not that helpful right now, because this is more or less ranging price action. There's trades to be made here, yes, but realistically, the big trades are going to be had once we get the new monthly. Okay, cool. So, again, kind of bringing everything together, I would say that the bias in traditional markets right now is with another drive to the upside. It, is with another move to the upside for the greater market, which probably does benefit Bitcoin. So I do think that helps out its case as well. We can go check out Microsoft, which a lot of the techs, though, we are seeing rotations. We certainly are seeing rotations because a lot of the techs are looking like they're under pressure. Microsoft chart is actually okay. Apple looks a lot more under pressure, and Tesla looks a lot more under pressure as well. Tesla looks like that was kind of your throwback right there, getting ready for another move back down to 1400 or 1420, which is a good number. In fact, actually, the very low time frames for Tesla look actually quite nasty here. I'll be looking for another move back down to 1400. Tesla does still look topped out to me. But if the rest of the market does move up and gets these good closures coming into tomorrow, do I still think that is topped out? I would still actually think that it's topped out and just going to move sideways while everything else gets rotated up. I think it's very clear right now that tech's obviously led this last rally. The health sector is kind of going right now, and then we'll see what gets rotated next. But as long as these rotations keep on going on and on and on, it will allow Bitcoin to very likely it will at least allow the opportunity for it to continue onwards and upwards. Let's see what else we want to check out. Let's check out triple Qs. Triple Qs looking like a higher low as well, very likely. Maybe to a lesser extent, I'd kind of have the same analysis here. As long as it's above the 21, do I think that it pops back up and tests around 264.5? Yeah, probably. Below the 21, I look for a deeper retracement coming into next week, probably 245, 246 region. So a lot is going to really hinge on tomorrow's closure. I feel like today's more or less going to be a fuck around day. Let's go check out gold as well. Gold at making new all-time highs, getting the backfill right here. I'd probably be looking for another stab to the upside. I know a lot of people are looking at this as like a great area to pull back in. I mean, maybe on the short-term time frames, if I see something here, yeah, short-term probably does pull back down to 1950-ish region. But overall, I mean, this is a hard chart to hate. It's still, I mean, reapproaching your high after a sell-off like this is not bearish in any way, shape, or form. It looks like it's just getting reaccumulated. Although I do think that very short term, it does come back down around here, just like I think very short term Bitcoin comes back down a couple $100 from where we are right now as well. But I'd be looking at that likely as an opportunity, assuming that this level holds. And this level, more appropriately said, marked off here would be about, 1945? Sounds like a year. Something like this is the range that I'd be looking at for the short term. And, we're probably riding some sort of an uptrend like this, but now I'm breaking my own rule of being Miss fucking Cleo. That's not real trading or technical analysis. That's just more or less bullshit. But yes, short term down here, but I'd be looking for it to, if it is going to maintain long-term healthiness, put in a higher low somewhere around 1945. Looking at the weekly and monthly closure coming into tomorrow, a monthly closure anywhere above 1825 looks massively good for new all-time highs coming into August and September. Although I do think that there will be at some point a major pullback to 1890, 1850-ish region. But I do think that would more or less be an opportunity. Weekly closure anywhere here higher tomorrow is looking good as well. I mean, it's closing on new highs essentially. There's nothing bearish about that as it stands. I would get bearish below. However, I would get bearish below 1850, 1870-ish region on a daily or higher closure. But for right now, it just looks like continuation for now. Daily momentum oscillators are pretty damn beat up here, so could it pull back? Yes, it certainly could, but I'd really be looking for some sort of bearish divergence on a daily and no less before judging the next pullback. And right now, is it going to be building some divergence with a read like this? Yeah, of course, but that would also imply that it makes another high and then a lower high on RSI here. So probably does come back down, tests the exponential, and then bounces off that, and then perhaps makes a new high, and then we'll have some divergence to analyze. And that's kind of what I'm thinking on Bitcoin as well. Do we have any divergence on a daily present on Bitcoin? No. In fact, well, I'm sure a lot of people are going to call this divergence here. This is not bearish divergence here, because you don't have a stop and reverse point on both sides. It's like, is this your high or your low, huh? You don't know here because it's still continuation. So no, I don't think that it operates like that. But I think kind of the same thing here as well. Probably does test around the exponential somewhere in the middle of this range, and then bounces off, tries for a new high. Then we have some divergence, and then we play out a nice little pullback, probably back down to that 10.6-ish region. in sometime early next month. That's essentially what I'd be looking for right here. Sideways above 10.8 is healthy as far as I'm concerned for Bitcoin right now, for even the short-term time frames. Well, short-term you could say, well, that's a 200 move to the downside, Krown, so maybe you should be more accommodating of that, and fair enough. Short-term you could say that I'm bearish on that. Medium term though, I would look at that more or less as an opportunity, not because it's guaranteed to work out, but because it just offers up a very easy way to be managing risk around this area. I don't really have any real reason to be bearish on Bitcoin as long as it's above this baby right here. Let's go maybe back to like a time frame that isn't a fucking hourly. So we'll go to a 2 hour. No, I just like to use the 10.8 region right here just because it does line up with quite a few other things, and judge it that way. So very, very short term, yeah, I do think that it swipes back down around here. But does it actually break? I wouldn't be so confident of that just yet. I want to see the monthly closure because that's gonna set in the bias here. Let's go check out Mr. Beaterall. He's been leading a lot of this rally to the upside and taking a major breather right now, all the way back down to 317.5. It looks like. On a daily, looking a little more toppy than Bitcoin as well. Still doesn't have any bearish divergence on the daily either, so I wouldn't necessarily be calling this run just done yet. On a monthly, I don't know what that's pointing towards. Maybe just a girthy green dildo on my face. On a monthly, any sort of a closure above 295 especially looks very, 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 very good coming into August and probably September as well, and probably does initiate targets back up to 390 or 400-ish region. This chart right here looks fine to me as it is. Monthly Stokes going to be really aggressive to the upside there, and monthly RSI bouncing off. Again, not really enough history there to make too much out of it. Maybe we could go to a chart that has slightly more history. And about the same thing, so fair enough. It is confirmed, but I would be looking for a retest back down to 295 region coming into next month. But again, I do think that would be very likely an opportunity. Just a nice risk management point. So for right here, probably a little bit of down, but does it actually break that area? I wouldn't be so confident of that just yet. At least I'd wait for like a 12-hour or daily total closure and nothing less than that, just because these are pretty major areas here with pretty big implications for the macro that many people have been waiting like 3+ years for. So I don't think that waiting one more day is that far-fetched. I want to check out some of my secondary indicators right here. Looks like we're looking at the euro dollar. Maybe let's go to Bitcoin for a second. Is there anything of particular note on the MACD's nuts and the Stoke RSI? No, I don't even look at Stoke RSI. I just have it there for fun. MACD actually still divergence to the upside. Now we will actually very likely be getting some histogram divergence here, but again, doesn't necessarily have any sort of a high in place just yet. So is that a potential? Yes. Is it confirmed this week? It'd be very difficult to confirm it this week. In fact, at soonest, it'd probably be like 2 weeks away if we stopped and reversed from here. Looking at it daily, same thing. Let's look at the Challenger bands too. I'm curious if we're still operating outside the top side of these. Let's try this. Good old stock standard trolleys there. And yes, actually, we're still bouncing off the top side of this. I'm going to stick with what I said, man. This looks like a backfill to me. We're still trending out the top side of this. I'm going to guess that historical volatility percentile on the daily is also expanding at the same time as well. Whoops, that's not a daily, that's a 4 hour. On the daily, it is still expanding as well. The moving average on this is massively upward sloped, and still got a little bit of space to fill out right here as well. I would say that, yeah, I do think that Bitcoin gets another try to the upside here. I think that 11,500 actually does probably get hit. Does Bitcoin close above it on this weekly or monthly? That I think is a pretty major question mark. I would be looking for an initial pullback to start off in August is the next month. August is the next month, right? You can't answer. Well, I guess there might be some answers after I post the video, but it doesn't really help for the conversation right now. I apologize. A very one-sided conversation once again, but overall, as long as Bitcoin's closing above the top side of these Challenger bands, which is currently 11,091 on GDAX, we're in the process of trending, and I look at this as a consolidation outside the top side bands, as historic volatility percentile is still in the process of expanding right here. I look at that as good. I look at that as more likely to continue overall. And that can also come alongside a retest of 10.8. It's just I'm not bearish as long as we're above 10.8. even for like a short-term or medium-term trade, really. Yes, I do understand that includes a $200 move to the downside from this price point, but the ranges are big now. They're very, very big. So, is that worth trading? I mean, yeah, sure it is, I suppose. $200. I mean, how fucking spoiled are we? It's like $200 isn't worth it. Well, yeah, of course it is. It's, it's a nice management point right now is the way that I look at it. Looking at the 12-hour, are we doing the same sort of thing? No, we actually did get rejected by the topside band yesterday. So 12-hour structure does suggest actually a little bit higher as far as a management point, right around 10,950-ish region. So again, still kind of around that area, but let's see what the 4-hour looks like right now. 4-hour 20 simple coming in about 10,850. So yeah, it wouldn't really destroy too many things to come back down and test around there. In fact, I still do think that is rather likely. Just does it actually break or not? Well, if it breaks, I'd be here's the thing. My opinion is not needed. If it breaks, I would be looking for extension back down to about 10,550-ish region. Assuming that it doesn't break and you get another wick back up, I'd be looking for hidden bullish divergence to play back up to 11,250 to 11,300, and then Bitcoin to very likely. Let me just make sure that. Ooh, nice, got filled, sweet. And then I'd be looking for Bitcoin very likely to at that point, maybe it actually does break out to the upside and we get that move to 11.5. But then realistically, the focus is on the monthly closure. How long is this video? 35 minutes. Okay, we can go a little bit longer for the TA nerds right now. Let's go check out some of the other things in this market. First things first, let's go check out Eurodollar. Some actual shitcoins. No, this one's definitely not acting like a shitcoin as of recently. And I'm on the wrong thingy. Eurodollar right here, 117.5. Looking like it's kind of stair-stepping up on the daily. It actually looks rather similar to a Bitcoin chart right now. Very, 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 very good chart right here. I do think that it's going to bounce off this horizontal at 117.5. We did hit. I mean, we hit our weekly targets pretty much right off the bat this week. The question is now is kind of the same thing as everything else that we were speaking about. Does the weekly and monthly close above 117.5 or not? If it does, I'm looking to extend this run probably towards a 200 on the monthly, which is about 119.5, a little bit north of that. If it does not, then I'd be looking for a range play out between about 115.5 and where we are right now. And I do think that 115.5 very likely does get retested coming into August. Assuming that we close somewhere around here, but overall that'd still be setting up for a move somewhere towards the 200 exponential average on the monthly here. So I would remain bullish on this one still, but overall after that I'd probably be looking for a major high to be put in somewhere around that region. Although I'd still want to see it in real time. Let's go check out Aussie dollar versus US dollar. I know a lot of people care about that too. I'd be looking for a move. I'd still be looking for this to extend towards a 55 on the monthly, somewhere around 73 299 73.3 maybe a better way to say it. And do we want to look at anything else? Let's go look at DAX for a second. How's Germany doing? Rather similar to SPY right here. Did sell off on the retest of the last prior monthly closing high, 13,300. But overall, is this problematic as it is? If it closes here, I imagine we're going to see monthlies. No. Whoa, we see monthly stocks cross to the downside as long as below 13,139. Okay, interesting. Yeah, DAX does look a little bit more potentially bearish than other major markets. And DAX does matter too. DAX lives definitely matters. Interesting. All right, I'll just keep that one in the back of my mind and watch that one tomorrow just to see. Looking at Link Bitcoin here, what do we see here? Oh wow. I think I was looking for a bounce up. Yeah, I don't trade this one myself, but I do believe I said yesterday a bounce back up to 75,000 satoshis. Is that still in order here? I think it's still very much possible. Yes. Yeah, I actually do think that's still very much possible. I do think that probably does happen. Now, if it doesn't, if we get continuation to the downside, I don't really see too much holding this up from for about a little bit under 50,000 satoshis. 49,000 satoshis is where I'd be looking towards. Weeklies, nah, I'd be looking for this one to bounce still. I still think that this one does bounce back up towards somewhere back up towards the mid 70,000 satoshis region. I don't think that we see downwards continuation before a bounce here. It's essentially what I'm trying to say. Cardano versus Bitcoin. What do we see here? Ooh, nasty. Very nasty girl, but same sort of thing. I do think that this one probably does test back down towards 1150 Satoshis, but I don't think that it's ready to break down from that area just yet. It's all going to come up to the weekly and monthly closure for this one. If the weekly closes like this, I would be looking at this as the next major macro high. In a series of macro highs going all the way back to January 2018, queued fucking up right there. But all of those looking quite nasty. The monthly problematic. The monthly just doesn't have a history to even really analyze it properly. I can't say too much about this. I just don't know. I mean, a healthy amount of I don't know for that one for sure. There's not enough history there. Looking at the daily right here, does look like it gets another test of the downside, but I would be looking for a bounce at 1150-ish region. Daily momentum also is kind of snaking around quite a bit. Other than that, I don't really have too much to add. I don't really have too much to add on this one. I don't think that I have a strong read on this one. I just kind of disregard anything that I said about it. It's too floaty within this region. I'd rather look at the greater market and see what else is kind of populating itself. Looking at Mr. Buterin versus Bitcoin, selling off very aggressively after we hit the 200 exponential average target from, Jesus Christ, man, like a month ago. I do think that it will bounce somewhere around 278 region. And then we'll come back to it after that. Again, same thing here. I want to see the weekly, monthly closures. Short term down to about 278, but I'd be looking for a bounce there. And any sort of a monthly closure above that level will look actually good coming into August long term. Litecoin versus Bitcoin, weird looking chart. Let's go look at Mr. Ripple's nipples. Is it going to actually try to turn the corner here and make a stab towards 2450? Maybe, but a chart only a mother could love. What about Ripple versus the dollar? Same sort of thing here. If it closes the weekly above 24.5 cents, I'd be looking for this run to extend quite a bit, but hard to love a chart that's been down for 3 years straight, as are all of them. Here's our EOS. Probably makes a stab towards the top side of the range at 3.5, but does that mean that I'm bullish on it? I mean, hard to fight a multi-year long downtrend. NEO, same thing. I mean, all of these are short-term looking up, yes. It's just, can they actually break the long-term trends? I suppose a healthy Bitcoin does bode well for the greater market. But right now, it really feels like we are seeing major divergence within the market between the stronger altcoins and the weaker altcoins, meaning that the strong ones have actually been rallying quite healthily for the last few weeks, whereas the weaker ones not really, barely pulling themselves up by the bootstraps and piecing together very pathetic rallies thus far. So rotations in crypto are very, very relevant as well. Anyways, let's go look at the ranges and go look at, oh my God, man. So, okay, now we're at 40 minutes. This is a little bit crazy now, huh? Am I recording? I am recording. Okay, that's great. Now let's go look at ranges and match it up with the probabilities and see what's mathematically more likely. So for this, I'm going to use, which one do you want to use here? Technically speaking, 10,800 is probably going to be better. I do think that you could get away with using 10,900 and front run that by $100. We can look at both sides, but to keep it even, probably better to use 10,800, I suppose. To the upside, medium term, I'd be looking at 10,200 right here as a resolution point for a 4-hour closure, initiating a move all the way up to about 11.5. By the same token, the 10.8, we'll call it 10.850. We'll just cut it to the middle. If that area does get broken on a 4-hour closure, I'd be looking for extension to 10.550-ish region. So these are only speaking towards medium-term time frame ranges, which I think is all that we can really do right now. I don't think that we get anything more resolved than that before this monthly closes. So we'll do this right here first. We'll do 10. I believe I said 200 for the 4-hour resolution to the upside, and to the downside, we'll cut it to the middle in that range at 10.850. And looking at the probabilities here for daily total closure, it's actually rather even on both sides, about 33%. 33.5% for the upside resolution versus just under 38% resolution or probability for the downside resolution. If we look at a 12-hour, it is both decently high as well, 29.5% to the upside versus 32 and a third to the downside. But I actually want to look at a 4-hour here because this is relevant to that time frame, and I suspect that it's actually going to be decently high on both sides. No, it's actually not, but that's because we're closing a 4-hour when. When 4-hour close, 2 hours and 27 minutes. So actually, that's actually rather low. So what are we likely to do? We're likely to range. It's kind of what I'm saying, I suppose. 2.5% to the upside versus 5% to the downside. Those are both rather low outside of the first standard deviation. So, what does that align with? Probably aligns with the test to both sides. But do we get a resolution to one of the sides? Probably not. Well, especially in this next 2 hours and 30 minutes. After that, obviously resets and we get new sets of probabilities, of course. But for right now, I would be looking at this and thinking that more or less sideways here, setting up for potentially a really good closure coming into the monthly tomorrow. We can also look at the higher term time, or not that. Well, we could look at the macro resolution range for tomorrow. Let's actually do this. Sorry, we are already on future here. So I was actually probably giving it a naturally bigger berth anyways. But what I'll do right now is actually look at the probability of tomorrow's closure. So tomorrow being the monthly closure, are we more likely to close above 11,500 or below? To the downside, 10,800 is not relevant for the macro. It's 10,550 or 10,500 if you're a little more conservative. That's relevant to the macro. And on a 4 hour, it's 0% on both sides. Well, of course. On a daily, it's pretty much fucking dead even. Just under 15% probability for the upside versus 16.75% for the downside at this current price point at 11,000. So to me, that does say that, both of those kind of around the first deviation probabilities resolution, which means that, it's relevant to happen. Yes. And we do see that the rings on this are actually starting to squeeze once again to the upside. I actually do think that Bitcoin does go up from here. While I do think that it could very easily test the downside of the short-term range, or medium-term range, as I've been relating that concept right now. I do think that upside continuation is more likely overall. And here's actually the sombering effect. I really should have had this on current rather than future. So on future bars, it would suggest that the probability between the upside and downside comes back into parity essentially and slightly favors the downside if we're looking at future close tomorrow. But if we're looking at current, if we're looking at today's closure, to juxtapose that against this, it's actually almost double. It's actually almost double the upside probability versus the downside from today's. So I look at this. What this essentially suggests is that we're more likely to get continuation sooner rather than later. And the more that Bitcoin goes sideways from this range, the more it will actually naturally get bearish as, at least on the medium term time frame resolutions coming into the weekend, because, well, tomorrow is Friday, of course. So it actually would suggest that we probably do test the upside of the range again sooner rather than later. And I say this while Bitcoin's actually heading back down below 11,000 once again. So it looks like we are going to get that test short term back down to like 10,850-ish region, give or take about $50. But does it actually break or not? If it breaks, well, I'd be targeting another extension like $300-400 lower. If it assuming that it doesn't break, well, I'd just be looking for this to trade a little bit more sideways, reaccumulate, and give another test towards 11,200 with any sort of a 4 hour or even would a 2 hour work here as well? 2 hour probably works here as well. 2 hour deal to closure above 11,200. I'd look for extension to 11.5, and that likely takes us into tomorrow. So I don't really want to speak too ahead of that. Now, I mean, could it be that Bitcoin does close above 11,500 today? I mean, yeah, it's possible, I suppose. If it did, where would I be looking towards after that? I suppose I'd be looking towards here. 11.9 to 12,000. So yeah, targeting another $400-500 extension of the upside. So upside and downside ranges here kind of have very similar implications as far as driving the next medium term target for about $400-500. So all those things fitting together, which is cool. Good confluence is always sexy, I suppose. And I think this is maybe a good place for this one to shut off. So once again, I want to wish you the best of the best and the haps of the happiest. I'll be back on tomorrow with some more live stream analysis. No, just regular analysis. I'll be on a live stream later today, very, very likely, unless if something, I don't know, weird happens. You never know what happens, man. But with all that said, I want to wish you well once again. Take care, and until next time.